You're watching once again a YouTube video presentation of the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. I'm Scott Veach. I'm your host, and on this program we'll be discussing topics of interest for caregivers of loved ones with dementia. We hope that you will subscribe to the channel and you'll hit that thumbs up like button. Both of those actions help the channel to grow and allow us to reach more people. And if you'll tap that notification bell, you'll be alerted each time we upload a new program. And now, this is Once Again. This is part two of our conversation with Joy Loverde, and she is the author of the complete Eldercare Planner, Where to Start, What Questions to Ask, and Where to Find Help. It is available on Amazon. It is and it's an encyclopedia of care to be able to help you navigate that journey. Joy, thanks for being with us, staying around for part two of our conversation. One of the things that I think is interesting is that people are providing care all along the journey. And maybe some people don't become involved until maybe it's a year or two or four after the person they're caring for could have used some help. So my question is it ever too late to start in this planning? Ever too late?
Well, it's never too late, but the problem usually is if the person that we perceive needs help doesn't feel the same way, we're going to be in for a rude awakening. And they're saying, why are you showing up now? I've been doing fine, even though it doesn't look like it to you. I'm just fine. So the challenge will be to work your way into that person's life so they trust you. That'll be the biggest challenge. After that, typically people say, okay, I get it. That they realize that they might have been lucky that nothing really bad happened, and sometimes they welcome the attention, but the family member is going to be in for like, oh, how do I even do this now? You know.
Is it necessarily easier to provide that help if you are a family member, or do we run into situations where perhaps a dear friend, a lifelong friend, can step in?
Well, let me give you an example. My dad needed a hearing aid. He wouldn't hear it from any of his 5 children, including me, even though I've written books, didn't matter. But what I did do is I talked to his best friend and I said, Jerry, isn't it driving you crazy that Dad can't hear? And Jerry was the one who got my dad to get a hearing aid. So those people are very important.
Oh, in part one, and if you haven't had a chance to look at part one yet, it's already up on our channel. We talked about some important legal documents. One of those being power of attorney that we mentioned in part one. That doesn't necessarily have to be a blood relative, correct?
That's correct. And many of the people that as they grow older, they will either outlive family or they don't have family who may want to take on that responsibility. So there are people we can talk to. I suggest talking to an elder law attorney or an estate planning attorney or the fiduciary banker and ask them these questions like, okay, if I outlive everybody, how in the world do I create a power of attorney, someone who will be an advocate for me as I age? So again, planning is going to play a big part in being able to name someone who will be an advocate in the long run.
And being a caregiver, I think, is pretty common these days. So I think even if you live in a rural area anywhere in the country, it's probably not going to be that difficult to find legal assistance from someone who has care, who can provide these documents. Do you find that to be the case?
Yes, you are absolutely right. Worldwide, people are caring for each other because of the lack of care. There is a caregiver shortage, a care worker shortage. There's a shortage of people who want to do this work. And so it's not unusual to be able to have a conversation with an attorney or a doctor to say, okay, in my neck of the woods, what are my alternatives? And they typically know. They have answers.
One of the things that I really liked about the book, and I like many things about it, you had in there a professional advocate questionnaire, questions to ask, and questions that you have the right to ask your providers. And I think some people can be intimidated in that position sometimes and not ask questions. But I thought that was a really good point you made, that it's okay to ask questions about anything, whatever you have concerns about.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, they have gone to school and gotten their degrees, and
Yes.
they are really smart people. And we just sit there and say, I don't know. So, one of my favorite questions to ask someone that I'm paying for advice is, what should I be asking you? What questions should I be asking
Wow.
you?
Yeah.
And there you go. And they will begin to educate us, and then we will say, well, what makes, so when they give us an answer, we could also say, well, what's your evidence that what you're saying is true? And there you go. There's another question. Now, the other wonderful thing about this world is we don't just have one advisor, we have many advisors. And we could ask many people their opinion on what they think we should do. So yes, asking questions is so critical. I think that's what makes us different from the generation that came before us, where they said, okay, all the professionals, take their word, whatever they say. And we're the generation that says, not so fast.
Yeah, yeah. I think another variation of that I've always found helpful is uh, to ask any provider, if you were me, what would you do? You know,
Exactly.
that's another one that is okay to ask. Okay, so let's switch gears here for just a second. One of the things that you wrote about, it's actually chapter 3 in your book, and we're talking with Joy Loverde. The book is The Complete Elder Care Planner: Where to Start, Which Questions to Ask, How to Find Help. Available on Amazon. Uh, Chapter 3 is Be Kind to Yourself. Take care of you. Wow, that's important, isn't it?
It is. Um, Everybody has their own definition of what that means, but what angers caregivers the most, including myself, because I am in the middle of 6 caregiving situations right now,
Wow.
not unusual for me, is when people say, you really should take better care of yourself, take a break, and it's like, no, that is not helpful for a caregiver to hear.
Yeah.
Basically, where I go with that is everybody knows how to take a break, whatever that may mean. For me, it means maybe getting out a can of paint and painting a room, or running and do a power walk. So everybody's going to do their own thing. But a lot of times it comes down to, and this is the big one, learning how to delegate.
Um, we're here and we've got so much to talk about, and in the book right now, if we went by chapter, we'd only be in chapter 4. It's like that old country music song, got a long way to go and a short time to get there. But in chapter 4, you wrote about communicating, and I loved what you wrote there about taking a deep breath and jumping in, turning conflict into cooperation, getting out of your own way. Wow, where do we begin? So important, all of those.
Yeah, so one little thing I have, and I have complete trust, and my elders have complete trust in me. We have taken the time to establish trust, but that does not mean they won't argue with you, and it doesn't mean that they won't argue with me. And so one of my best tricks is to go over to the kitchen sink and get a glass of water and say, excuse me, I need to get a glass of water. And a glass of water has saved me from saying things I didn't mean, and just
Yeah.
helping me calm down. And as I get the glass of water and I come back into the room, I usually say, hey, you know what? I'm on the same side as you. We're on the same side. And then I ask, where do you think we should go from here? So calming the waters, there are a lot of tips in the book about establishing a trusting relationship, because that's really the secret sauce of caregiving.
Yeah, trust, so important. And you said we talked about this briefly in part 1 about Today's caregiving approach is more like a chess game, and one of the things that you wrote also in the chapter about communication, you talked about partner, not preach, a partner, not parent. Um, that's a tough road to navigate sometimes.
Well, yeah. My reason for saying that is we can never parent our parents. It's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And so, how do we do caregiving when it is someone who does have very specific needs, and and we can't understand why they aren't listening to us and trusting us at the moment. So at that point, what I like to do is remind myself is I am that person's advocate, not their parent, not someone to tell them how to do their life at this stage. I'm an advocate. And even when I don't like what I hear, my job is to say, how can I help you?
So we come back to the word trust. Is
Mm-hmm.
that the most important component, or is it up there on the Mount Rushmore of trust? I mean, I think it's obviously very important.
To me, it's number one.
Yeah.
If trust doesn't exist within the relationship, we have to figure out how to establish trust. And it doesn't happen by saying, trust me. Is this going to work out?
Mm.
No, trust means listening. Trust means asking questions. Trust means letting them be angry when they need to be angry. Trust means sitting and being quiet and validating who they are. That's how we establish trust.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be from a family member. It could be
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's part of that team, correct?
Correct. Anyone. And many times, I'll tell you, who do you suppose is the most trusting, loving, best person in the world for the job of relating to an elder?
Mm-hmm. Well,
You want to know?
please tell me, yes.
The grandchild.
The grandchild. Why the grandchild?
Grandchildren and grandparents tend to have a special bond that doesn't include the parents. And so grandchildren have a very powerful way of making requests of grandparents that maybe no one else can.
It reminds me of that old joke that grandparents and grandchildren get along so well because they share a common enemy.
I've seen that. I've seen that to be true. Yeah. So grandchildren can be very helpful, and of course we all want to keep that bond strong and alive as best we can as parents.
Boy, we're out of time here. We're wrapping up. If someone is just taking step one on helping care for someone, what's one of the first things that you think they should do?
Okay, besides establishing trust, we can't just walk in the room and
Right.
say, okay, it's time to talk about the future, right? But if the trust is established, know that the top three issues that we need to get a handle on as soon as possible. Number one, how are they able to finance a longer life? Number two, where are they going to live for the long haul? And number three, get your legal documents in order. So start with money.
Okay. The book is The Complete Eldercare Planner. It is where to start, what questions to ask, and how to find help. Joy Loverde is the author, and boy, it's been great talking with you. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You've been watching once again a YouTube video presentation of the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. We hope if you haven't done so already that you'll subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up like button. Both of those actions help the channel to grow and allow us to reach more people. And if you'll tap that notification bell, you'll be alerted each time we upload a new video. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Scott Veach. We'll see you again next time.